Imagine a world where customer loyalty isn't a rarity but the norm. Unlock the keys to building lasting connections and turning first time buyers into lifelong advocates here with our experts today. So, joining us today to help us create new ways to get here, we have Blair back with Jameela again, Ruth Aim, Jacob George, Casey Luck, and Jay Carls throughout this whole experience at Email Edge. So, let's jump into our first session. And this first session is about boosting your Shopify store conversion metrics. So let's welcome our guests. Blair Beckwith, here with us. He's the CMO of TDO right now and has been working in and around e-commerce enablement for 12 years. He got his start leading the App Store team at Shopify and has been investing, advising, and working full-time with e-commerce ever since. With the little time he finds between work and his growing family, he's a long distance runner and avid reader. Welcome, Blair.
Thanks, Marianne. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
And we have Jameela Gunn. Jameela is passionate about helping e-commerce businesses convert visitors into customers. Currently, Jameela is marketing manager at Farah, where she helps e-commerce businesses leverage the power of reviews to build trust and boost conversions. Prior to her role at Farah, Jamila gained valuable insights into the world of e-commerce through running her own Shopify store, Allura Boutique. Welcome, Jamila.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the good intro, too.
I just realized we're going from the bottom up. So last, we have Ruth Evenheim. Ruth isn't your typical entrepreneur. She began her career working in the military's IT department before moving to a project lead role in high tech. During this time, she built a small e-commerce businesses as a side hustle. Through that experience, she then learned to think like a merchant and see where Shopify's app store was missing solutions. Together with her co-founder and brother, Eric, Ruth has built several amazing products, including Reconvert Upsell, the most popular upsell app on the Shopify platform. Today, she is a co-founder of Reconvert. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you for having me.
So let's jump right in. So in the first section, we're going to talk a little bit about e-commerce challenges and opportunities. And I was wondering, what are the major pain points for e-commerce growth teams when it comes to increasing conversions? Jameela, would you like to start with that one?
Yeah, for sure. So from my experience, one of the biggest things for businesses that are starting out and growth teams is truly understanding the customer behavior and the customer preferences and finding out exactly how these people are shopping, talking to their customers, making sure that they're understanding where the friction points are. And I think a lot of times people really get into the weeds of running their store day to day, and they don't take enough time to talk to their customers or solicit customer feedback. So that's like one thing that I find is hard for some people. And then the other thing for startup stores is trust and credibility. I've done a couple of conversion rate optimization audits for some of our customers, and you'd be surprised at like how little and how scanty the information is about who they are, where they're shipping from, all of these things that build trust and credibility, things like product reviews and even links to their social media. So for people starting out, it's really making sure that customers understand who they are and can trust them the first time, because if people can't trust them, they just leave their store. That's going to tank your conversion rate. So that's those are the big things that I see.
Awesome. So you're saying getting customer reviews and having the right information in the right place so people can actually feel they're legit.
Yeah, people don't want to think you're sketchy.
Right. That makes sense. Awesome. Blair, do you want to jump in and help with this one too?
Yeah, no, for sure. And Jameela, I appreciate everything you're saying. I think there's a lot that I want to touch on around kind of the human side of e-commerce. And I think that's that sort of trust is a big part of that, right? Like building that relationship with customers. I think more sort of, I think when we think about pains around conversion right now, I think important context is just sort of how rough things are right now. We went through some really great times with COVID. Now that's wrapped up. There's this question of looming recession, changing buying behaviors, compounded with some of the changes to the ad world over the last little bit. It used to be you could just buy traffic, and conversion was important, but you could always buy more traffic to offset a poor conversion rate. And I think like that has become increasingly hard. And so I think that's like super important context on why conversion is so important. I think for super small stores, an overlooked part is really like site speed. I think this is a problem for all stores, but I think it especially affects small stores. I think I worked on the Shopify App Store for a long time. I think it's an incredible resource for finding tools, but I think sometimes small stores get wrapped up in adding on a lot of tools. They have a lot of apps. This is like, if you apply those apps to an already unoptimized theme, site speed can drop very quickly, and that's just something that I think a lot of people don't really take into consideration. I think coming back to the sort of humanity side of things, I think really like proactive sales focused customer support. Obviously, like CX is what we do here, and so that's always top of mind. But I think it's just like, I think there's a limit to the comparisons you can drive between sort of e-commerce and like brick and mortar commerce. But I think one of the parallels that I always like to draw is like, when was the last time you walked into like a boutique store and bought something and the shopkeeper just like ignored you the whole time? That's the experience that most people go through when they shop online. And I think that's like something that should change. And there's tools out there now where we can reach out to visitors on our site, and we need to use those. And it's honestly easier for smaller stores, right? Because they're usually not suffering from like a mountain of traffic. You can actually have like personal interactions with most of the people who visit your site, and I think that's sort of a superpower that smaller stores have.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I actually wanted to jump straight into superpowers and think of like what sort of opportunities that they should be looking at. And Ruth, I would love to hear a little bit from you. Could you share some specific tactics that people could try today to increase conversions?
Yeah, sure. So I do want to add that one of the big challenges right now for e-commerce stores is the cost of acquisition. The competition is going painful. Acquisition is getting more and more expensive, and so you really want to focus on not only conversions but also getting the most out of each conversion that you get. So if I'm getting one order, I don't want this customer to only buy one product. I want this customer to really, explore the set of products and add more to the order and increase its value. So I think when we look at conversion rate, it's not just about getting the customer to the next step of the funnel and actually to end up buying, but also making sure that they actually add more products to the store and actually buy more, so that I have more money to play with, more budget to play with my advertising later. I really think, from my personal point of view, of course, upselling as an umbrella term is really something that you can use to both increase your conversion rate, but also your AOV. So when I say it's an umbrella term, it's not just upselling, it's also cross-selling, adding urgency, all of these little boosts to conversions that also add new elements to the order. So I think getting started with upselling both pre-purchase and post-purchase can really increase the conversions as well as the average order value and get customers to buy more, so that your store actually has more to play with and get over the obstacles of today's world.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great. So this is our opening, and now we're jumping straight into a section where Jamila is actually our star, and bring her right in. And we're going to talk a little bit about how reviews help us also boost sales. So, Jamila, we all know how important reviews are, especially for businesses that are new to the market or constantly launching new products. So, should people collect reviews per SKU, or is it more important to get general brand reviews? And if you're starting and need to focus on one of those, we know all of them are important, but if you had to focus on one of those, what should it be?
Right. So I hate to be the person who's like, it depends, but it does depend on your brand. It depends on what you're selling. So if you have frequent launches and you have a diverse product range, then you want to be getting reviews for your SKUs, for specific SKUs. So if you're selling like mugs and binders and like things that make people feel at home, then you want to be focusing on the individual product reviews. But if you are like a print on demand company, and let's say you have a bunch of different designs, but they're all on the same shirt or they're all on the same hoodie, then it might not be so important to get reviews on every specific design. Whereas you can, with something like Farrah, you can group your product reviews. So you can say like, typically people will talk about how the shirt fits. They'll be like, oh, the design is great and the fit is great. Like the shirt is super comfortable. So it's not so important to get a review for every specific design, whereas you're more getting reviews for the shirt and the feel and how it fits. So you can group product reviews based on that. So again, it depends on your on what you're selling. The other thing is, if you're a new business, you might want to start with brand reviews and store reviews. So for example, there's a store that I personally love that's here in Calgary, and they started getting Google reviews, and they have like 200 Google reviews because they were just kind of starting to launch their products. They had a few core products, but they have a bunch of Google reviews. And then I helped them bring their reviews from Google into Farrah. And after that, after you started launching your brand, you can start to get reviews specific or product specific reviews. I do want to plug Farrah a little bit. The nice thing about Farrah is that when you send out a review request, you can get a review for a specific product, but you can also get a review for your brand. So that's kind of what I would say people should do. If you're just starting out, get brand reviews so people can know that you're trustworthy. People understand that if they buy a product and they don't like it, they might be able to send it back. So again, it depends on what you are selling, but typically brand reviews are good for everybody. And sorry, I want to point out one other thing is that when you're getting reviews, regardless of where it is on the internet, you really want to think about where your customers are. So maybe if your customers are a little bit older, they really love Facebook, then you want to try to get like Facebook reviews. But maybe your customers are on TikTok and you don't have a lot of following and people are going to be Googling your brand. You want to really start out by getting Google brand reviews. And then once you start growing, you can use an app like Farrah to import them into your store and show them on your site. So that's the answer.
Awesome. Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I almost just answered the next question, but I'll ask her anyway. So what are the 3 tactics that people can use to get their first 50 reviews?
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing is to create a really, really good unboxing experience. So you want to focus kind of on the delight that you're going to give your customer once they open your package. You want to give them kind of that wow moment, because you're more likely to get a photo or a video review or a tag on social media. So that's the first thing: having a great product, having a great experience, shipping it on time, that kind of thing. And then the other thing is so the second would be to follow up with your customers. So have an automatic review request, like through an app, or if you're super, super small and you're just starting out, like don't be afraid to send like a personalized email and say like, here's the link to leave me a review. How was it? When I was starting my business, this was a long time ago. But when I was starting my business, we would ask people for reviews, and we did get a lot of reviews, like personally ask them for reviews. That's a super easy way to get reviews. And then the other thing that you can do, depending on your jurisdiction, is you can ask or you can offer incentives. So with Farrah, you can offer loyalty points through Smile, or you can offer discounts or cash back if you're on Shopify. So you can incentivize. But depending on where you live in the world, you have to say that you incentivize the review, or you might not be allowed to. So I'm not going to speak on all of the rules around the world, but that's a way to also get product reviews. And the last thing you can do is you can send out free product. You can send them out to influencers. I would say like micro influencers if you're smaller, or nano influencers. But those are like 3 ways to get reviews: great unboxing experience, following up, and incentivizing people.
Awesome. As a customer, I especially love the unboxing experience. And even if I get like a little letter, a little card, just saying,
Yeah.
we're new or small, and yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so we jump into the next part, which is how do we actually leverage those reviews once we get them?
Yes. So the most the best way to leverage your reviews on your site is to show them on the product page. A lot of people are looking for reviews on the product page. I know when I shop for clothes, I'm looking for the reviews. I want to see what people are saying, how it fits, if there's any stretch, anything like that. So that's going to reduce the friction of people buying because their questions are answered on the page. They're like, oh, other people like it. I feel okay buying it. The other thing that you can do is you can use it depends on if you've made people click like when they leave you a review that you can reuse it. But a really good way to use reviews is to reuse it in retargeting campaigns and ads. That's especially if they're like influencer vibe type videos. You can reuse those on TikTok, Instagram Reels. Those do really, really well. But you can even just like repurpose text reviews and use those in ads on something like Facebook. The last thing is to repurpose reviews on social media. So that really helps to build a community. People are like, oh, this brand featured me. And then people are more likely to leave photo reviews for you if they know they're going to be featured on your social media. So, and this works with large brands and this works with really small brands. Even like brands that I've seen in the north of my province, they get lots of people taking photos of their pictures because they're like, oh, I used this on my knitting, or oh, I did this. So like repurposing on social is really, really important. But on the product page is probably the best way that you can truly control your reviews.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Jameela.
No
And
problem.
yeah, so we'll jump into a little conversation with Blair. Blair, let's get you on stage again.
Absolutely. Hey again.
Cool. So Blair, we're going to talk a little bit about customer support and how that impacts conversions. So let's start with an understanding of what kind of impact that you understand that high quality customer support can make for growing brands, especially if they're just starting out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I sort of alluded to this in the beginning, and I'll say first, like I have a bias, due to what we do, but like I believe that like proactive customer support is almost everything at this stage. I think it's I can't say everything, right? Because there's a lot of things that these small brands have to think about. But I think it's at least one of, if not the most important thing. But I think the proactive component there is super important. I think a lot is sort of self-evident about the importance of reactive customer support. If somebody has a problem, you should fix it. Like we should always be customer first when it comes to that. But I think sort of proactive is the missing piece for a lot of brands, and that's where the impact is almost infinite. I think like thinking about the shopping experience end to end, like again to make like the real world comparison, I think like the difference and like the harsh contrast between the shopping experience somewhere like Walmart or your local big box store versus like a local boutique. I think one of the experiences here that I've had recently is like being on vacation in Vermont with my wife, and we just like went to like poke around downtown and walked into like a small store, walked into another small store, and we met like a woman who like made and printed her own clothes right in the shop, and we were talking to her for 20 minutes about her products, and they were like frankly massively overpriced, but we bought one because we had this really deep sort of like human conversation with somebody, and bought something that we might not have bought otherwise. And I think that's just like a perfect example of kind of like the impact of that proactive support. Certainly, I mean, you have to get the traffic first, but once they're there, offering sort of that level of interactivity is, I think, just like one of the most impactful things that you can do. And it's really just an extension of like your broader support strategy.
Awesome. I love it because it's like whatever it is that you're buying from someone that you kind of got to know the story of, it's not just the product anymore. You're actually buying the whole story. And whenever you look at that product, you're actually happy about it, right?
Yeah, no,
So,
that's absolutely the thing. I think I think this is maybe a generalization, but when it comes to these like more boutique style brands, like people buy the story just as much as they buy the product.
yeah, Yeah, totally agree. Cool. And now let's talk about speed versus effectiveness. So, how can e-commerce owners actually balance those two factors when attending to customers' needs? So, we're talking a bit of more of a reactive way now of looking at customer support. And is one speed or effectiveness more important than the other
Yeah.
when you're actually scaling your brand?
Yeah, no, this is actually this is a really good question. I think I have a bit of maybe a bit of a cop out answer depending on how you look at it. I think if you take the basic principles of good customer support as true, being customer centric, being willing to um, being willing to go the extra mile. If you believe that that is like table stakes, then I think like speed and effectiveness at this scale are actually basically the same thing. Speed is effectiveness. Um, Attention spans are like so short. They're even shorter online. If you look at your Google Analytics, you'll see like your bounce time, like your time on page, sorry, um, before customers bounce is usually like very low. Customers aren't lingering around. If they do reach out to support through say like live chat on site, for example, they're expecting like a near immediate response, and the best thing that you can do is give that to them. Otherwise, I think you're like at immediate risk of losing the customer. I think this is like one of the harsh realities of being a small business owner is it's like it's hard to get away. And with e-commerce being sort of inherently global, we don't just have to be available quickly for 8 hours a day like we might in a real world setting, but we really just kind of have to be available for that speedy response all the time. And I think until recently, that's been like a real struggle. We've had ways to mitigate that in the past, right? Like some like legacy automation stuff in this, but like with the rise of AI recently in customer support, it is like all of a sudden actually like very feasible to give like near immediate responses that are like thoughtful and coherent and helpful. Where near immediate means like seconds rather than minutes, whether I'm there or not. And I think that's something that, if we look back a year, maybe 18 months ago, that was like very cutting edge technology that was really maybe only available to the largest stores. But now, I mean, we're bringing it down market at Tidio. There's other players bringing it down market. There's like a lot of tools out there, whether it's us or somebody else, that can help you sort of get to that lightning quick response time. And I think that's just like a newly found superpower for small business owners.
Awesome. So that means there's no effectiveness without speed, right?
Yeah, I think that's it, and I think it really, I think previously a lot of smaller brands probably shied away from offering live chat because it was hard to, and it was hard to offer that time response. I think if we think about like other channels for support, things like email and ticketing, and I mean some brands I guess offer phone support. It's a little bit more rare, but there I think there's different expectations around speed, but I think with live chat, it's especially interesting and important.
Cool. So now let's jump into 3 tactics that people can actually explore today for customer support.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think this to me is all about automation, and the way that I would frame this is kind of like a 3-step process, like 3 separate tactics that all add up to hopefully you having to deal with less support. And that dealing with less support makes it sound like support is a chore, and I don't want it to. I don't want it to sound like a chore, but we'll touch on that. I think like first tactic is like getting a really good sense of what the most common questions are that you deal with. Depending on how you're dealing with support today, maybe that's email, maybe you're using something for live chat. If you're like a very small store owner, I think like the most common scenario we see is like there's a Gmail inbox and people email it, or they submit a form and it lands in an inbox. I think this idea of like figuring out what your most common questions are for those smallest brands can be as simple as like using Gmail tags, just like going through your last like week or month of customer support interactions and just tagging them. You're going to see trends, right? Like almost every store, the most common question is like, where's my order? I was expecting it to be here by now. And that's like a very easy one to tag. And once you start to see kind of see what's going on there in the pool of interactions, then you can start to sort of clear those out. And that's sort of, I think, the second tactic here is just like automating as much as we can. And there's different sort of layers to automation. First layer is really, I mean, it's not automation at all. It's not a technical solution. It's just like a knowledge solution. FAQs are obviously like the big thing here. Most customers are able to find the information that they need if you present it well. And so making sure that your sort of site content, your FAQs in particular, are sort of as fleshed out as possible. Second, kind of what we think of as like automations or flows or chatbots, but like not AI chatbots, but like more traditional sort of choose your own adventure style, I call it, chatbots, where like just prompt people with the common question of like, where's my order, and let them click and then automate that, send them to a tracking page hosted on site. There's like lots of tools that let you do that. And you can like immediately remove like 40-50% of your customer support interactions for some stores with like really simple automations. The next level of automation being kind of the more AI powered stuff that I mentioned, which is a more recent development, but can take you kind of even further. Those two combined, we see a lot of brands able to automate up to like 70% of their interactions, and that immediately takes a lot of weight off of your shoulders, which leaves room for the third tactic, which I think is really like take advantage of all of this time you've just saved by focusing on the like truly human interactions, being able to talk to people in a real way. If you're like selling dresses, being able to like have a conversation with somebody about like particularly like how they fit and like how they might fit their body and helping them choose like a specific product. That's the type of interaction I think a lot of small business owners feel like they don't have time for because they're drowned under kind of mundane questions. And so like let's just like automate the mundane stuff so that we can focus on kind of the more human side of things, or those things where bringing humanity back into it can be super impactful.
Yeah, that's so great. So that's where they actually get more insight from, because that's where, the problem really is, like talking to customers. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Blair. And yeah, and then that leads us to the third part of our conversation, which is with Ruth. And now we're going to talk a little bit about upsell and how that impacts your conversions too. So Ruth, let's compare effort versus result when it comes to upselling. What are the basics everyone should do to get started?
So I think when you look at effort versus results, it's really easy to get started with upselling if you want to do something basic. It's very low effort and you can just let it marinate and collect conversions and increase your average order value. I think if you want to get started, I would focus on just trying to get some form of upselling, cross-selling, or order boosting element in each step of the funnel. I mean, we all know the e-commerce funnel. Let's say it starts from the product page where the customer lands on your store, and then there's the cart, checkout, and post-purchase. You want to make sure that each one of these pages, each one of these steps has some sort of upsell, but it's really important to not overwhelm and spam our customers. I mean, these websites that you go into and they basically vomit pop-ups on you and there's like jingles everywhere and things. If you're very determined, you might complete a purchase, but most people would just leave. So we don't want to do that to our customers. One example of how we could just take the concept of upselling throughout the entire funnel is, let's say in the product page, we have some product recommendations, frequently bought together, a bundle, anything like that is embedded on the page. It's not a pop-up, it's not intrusive. And then on the cart page, you would have, let's say, a progress bar for free shipping, and maybe even a product that you recommend to add to the cart to get this free shipping. Check out the most sensitive area of the store. You really want to be careful At most, I would add 1 or 2 upsells that are very minimal, that you add close to either the order summary or the next step button. And then you have, it depends what platform your store is on. But if you're on Shopify, you can very easily add the one-click upsells post-purchase between the checkout and the thank you page. These convert amazingly. I really recommend that everyone use them if you're on Shopify. There is no reason not to. And the thank you page, I can talk about the thank you page for a whole hour, so I won't do that. But you can add a simple pop-up or a product upsell that is embedded on the page. And you don't have to work too hard to just create the whole thing and let it sit. I think that the more that these things sit in your store and your customers see it, you start creating your own baseline of what does conversion rate look for me with and without upsells in my specific store. And then the next step would be to start optimizing that and start figuring out what can I do to increase this conversion rate. Again, always comparing to my past results rather than industry benchmarks, which I always think are a little too general.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like with those basics, it can already go a long way. Yeah, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how we could get even a little bit more advanced. So could you share with us 3 tactics that people can use today to level that up?
Yeah, sure. So I do want to say about these basics. One thing I kind of forgot to mention is most apps that you would use to add upsells and cross-sells to your store would probably have some, best practices, some defaults that allow you to get all of these things done pretty quickly. So it sounds like a lot, but it's the kind of things you can probably get started with very, very simply. But the next stage would be, first of all, like I said, starting to optimize. So one thing to do is start working on personalization and segmentation, which really come together. At the beginning, maybe you'll just show some dynamic recommendations that are based on dynamic recommendations from Shopify or from whatever tool you're using. But then you can add to that specific recommendations. Let's say the customer purchased a specific product, I'm going to show them a specific upsell. This customer is a woman, I'm going to show her a specific product compared to if it's a man. Where they're from, how long should shipping take? There's a lot of little things that really affect the purchase experience as well as the post-purchase experience, and you can use them to direct the exact recommendations to the exact people that need to see them. It's not just about using a tag of first name or something like that. Like most people, I think about that with personalization. It's about showing them the right thing at the right time. So that's one thing. The second thing is testing, always testing. Like I said, in the beginning, you're building your own baseline. You're figuring out what your conversion rate is, and now it's a time to improve it. And the way to improve it is to always try new things. You could test with the products that you offer. You can test with the text that you use, the discounts that you use, and the types of elements that you use. On the product page, is it a pop-up or is it an embedded product recommendations widget, or is it both? There's really a lot of ways to get into it and do different things, and it can be very overwhelming in the beginning, which is why I would use that as an advanced technique. And then the last thing is to use the thank you page and the order status page as a landing page. I really think that this is a little more towards the retention scale than actual conversion rate, but these pages by default have a 0% conversion rate. You really, people get there, and you as the store owner can do a lot with this. You have their attention. The next natural step is to just close the browser and leave the store. But if you optimize this page as a landing page and you actually capture their attention while they're there and get them to either buy again or even just engage with you in a different way. It could be a video, a survey, just some text, whatever you want to show them or you want to ask from them, you can do that on these pages. And because they already purchased, there's no risk of losing this purchase, which is something you really want to be careful of with pre-purchase upselling.
Oh my gosh, I love all of those. And as a customer myself, like I feel like I even with the basics, like I feel like I'm actually almost mad at brands that will charge for shipping but won't offer me like valuable options of products that I might want to add to my order so
Yeah.
that I get free shipping. So I totally agree with you that customizing that experience is totally key. And I love all the rest too, especially like thinking of the thank you page as a landing page never occurred to me. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And what are the differences to consider when you're upselling prior to order checkout compared to post order checkout?
So I think the first difference, which brings with it the rest of the differences, is who are you upselling to? Pre-purchase or pre-checkout. I'm going to consider the checkout part of the pre-purchase process because the customer hasn't paid yet. So pre-purchase, this is a potential customer. This is just a visitor or a potential customer. Post-purchase, this is a customer. So it's like two different people. It's the same person, but the profile of them is different. So you do need to treat them differently. And because of that, with pre-purchase, one of the most important things is to not let your attempt at upselling hurt your conversion rate. And you can do it a little too easily. If you overwhelm the customer, if you give them too much, they're going to end up leaving. They're not going to increase their average order value. It's going to be zero. So you want to be very strategic with what upsells you show and very careful about it. Versus post-purchase, where they just purchased. The worst that could happen is that they don't purchase again. But this is a customer, and now you're working on the retention, so you can really be a little more free with what you show them, with how much you show them, and with what offers you're giving them. The second thing is discounts. Discounts is a tool. Discounts are a tool for e-commerce stores to really increase conversions and get people to buy. But if you use it a lot, then you kind of burn down this tool and customers will not be excited about it. So if you're discounting pre-purchase, you want to give smaller discounts. And again, this is the number exactly is very specific to each store and whatever their profit is. So you want to give smaller discounts and you want to give them it at the right times. Just for coming into my store, that doesn't mean you deserve a discount. You should do something for it. Maybe add a product to the cart. Maybe add, like we said, the free shipping bar. You want to make them work for it a little bit. Versus post-purchase, they've worked for it now. They've purchased. That's like the ideal thing that you want them to do. It's time to reward them for that. That's one. And second, they just got probably some discounts from your store. Most stores have pre-purchase discounts. So when you're discounting post-purchase, you want to give a bigger discount. I mean, this person just purchased. You want them to feel like an appreciated customer that you want to give a discount to. And you want to make it time sensitive a lot of times too, because that works really well post-purchase. I think these are the main differences. The one thing that these things have in common, pre and post-purchase, is that your goal is to increase the average order value. You want to increase the order value of this specific order, and if you do it for each order, you're going to increase the average of your store, generate more revenue, more profits, and just have more tools to really work on whatever it is you need to do to advance your business. It's just different approaches of doing that at each stage.
Awesome. That's so cool. And I actually feel like when we get something after we make a purchase, like we get like a coupon for like $30 free, whatever. I feel like if I'm not using that money, I'm losing money, So
Exactly.
I'm actually excited to kind of like, no, I need to use this coupon now that I got it. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. And let's bring everyone into stage again. And let's talk a little bit about, you just mentioned benchmark numbers, and now I'm curious. So what would be some of the industry standards that marketers should take into consideration where, well, they are growing their businesses. Let's start with you, Ruth. So, what are some of the upsell industry numbers we should be looking at?
So I'm gonna add a disclaimer. Like I mentioned a little bit. The thing about benchmarks, I think they are very general, and I think people sometimes get into, oh, am I like in the benchmark? Am I like in the right number? And the truth is that each store is so different, and e-commerce is such a wide, world of type of business, basically, that whatever the benchmark is, you should benchmark yourself. You should benchmark yourself and try to improve it. Your competition is with your past conversion rate or average order value or whatever you're measuring, and not with other stores. But that being said, what you can see is, first of all, that the farther down the line of the e-commerce funnel the customer is, the bigger the conversion rate. So if you look at the stores that are doing well on the product page, they could see 1 or 2% conversion rate, versus on the cart page, they could go up to 6 or 10% conversion rate. And then post-purchase, it's a lot of the times even higher, and it could be more in the lines of like 15%, 16%. It does depend on the number of orders you have post-purchase, because if you don't have a lot of orders, your conversion rate post-purchase is also going to be pretty low. And the interesting part is, and that is like a metric that I've heard a few years ago, and it always is in the back of my head, and that is that a 5% increase in your customer retention, in your repeat order value, which goes to the post-purchase section, can increase your profitability by 75%. So it's really all about testing it out and not just chasing the next order, but actually chasing the customers that have already purchased and getting them to purchase again and to become loyal brand members.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Jameela, and how about you? Like, what can you say about industry benchmarks for reviews?
Yeah. So, like Ruth was saying, it really depends across. Like, for something like Shopify, it's 7%, between 6 and 7%. But for something like Amazon, it's 1 to 2%, right? And even when you get into verticals, dental is 3.2% review response rate. Those are the percentages I'm talking about. Whereas something like plants is a 14% response rate, right? So like people who love plants are going to be talking about their plants. But when it comes to average review response rates for Farah, we're above industry, 8.3%, but for Shopify, it's 7%. For Wix, it's 12% review response rate. And for something like BigCommerce, it's an 11% review response rate. So if you're getting above 10%, above 20%, you're probably doing really well. But if you're in a general goods store, then 5% review response rate is decent. Again, it depends on who you are, your brand, how much your customers love you. Some people, they're going to buy a product from you. They're going to review every single product that they buy from you. So your review response rate is going to be high. So if you have a really good connection with your customer, then you are probably going to get a higher review response rate. But again, anything above 10% is really good. My store gets like 20%. But people
Awesome.
know me, and on our page, like I have my picture and stuff there, right? So people feel like they're talking to you. So it depends.
So that's another tactic right there. Put your photo on the page.
You have to make people like you, and then they'll buy more from you, right? They'll try that upsell, or they'll leave you a review because they're like, oh, I like this person. I like this brand. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Jameela. And Blair, how about customer support? What are the industry standards we should be looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate Ruth and Jameela saying everything about it depends, because it's very true. But I think with customer support, I think I don't have to apply that disclaimer too much. I think it's like a little bit more universal. And I think it's there's a bunch of numbers that you can measure when it comes to customer support, right? You can measure like cases closed, positive resolutions, how long it takes to resolve tickets on average, all these sorts of things. I think like what most brand operators should be thinking about, especially in the early stages, is like time to first response. I think that's like the big one, especially when it comes to live chat. I've already talked a lot about kind of the impact of AI on that, but I think like a good, without using any AI bots, I think like really 1 to 2 minutes is about the max that you can get away with on live chat. Obviously, like during business hours, depending on size of your team, like that can be really hard. Honestly, it really is. But like we talked about short attention spans, like nobody's sitting on your live chat widget for multiple minutes waiting for a response. So it's a tough benchmark to hit, but I think people should either take the painful route of trying to do what they can to hit that with humans, or using automation to get there. And I think it is like very, very, very doable with automation. For emailer tickets, there's obviously like more leeway. There's like less expectation of an immediate response. I think like generally like 8 hours is the way that I think of that as like a reasonable benchmark, and that includes all hours, right? So like that's sort of like an O kind of response rate, but during business hours, it should be we should try to be quicker than that. I think something in like the 1 to 4 hour, depending on really just kind of how much time and energy you can dedicate to support, is a good place to hit.
Nice. Thank you, Blair. And we actually have a question here for Ruth. Let me show it on the screen. So, hi, Ruth. How can we personalize upsell offers based on individual customer preferences, purchase history, or browsing behavior to make them more compelling and relevant?
That's a great question. So it depends on what product or app you're using to upsell. I can talk about how you can do it in Reconvert because I'm not necessarily familiar with the rest of the competition. But in Reconvert, you have what we call trigger-based funnels. You can define a trigger that is really specific. Like it can just be customer purchased a specific product or from a specific collection, and then you choose what to show them based on which trigger they fit into. So you want to choose a solution that allows you to do something like that. It allows you to create as detailed as you want funnels, but also always create a fallback funnel because depends on the size of your catalog. It might be impossible to do it for each product. So that's about the specific products that they might have purchased. When we look at the rest of the browsing behavior and purchase history, there are some apps that you could use that have very smart product recommendations engines. We integrate with some of them. We also integrate with Shopify's recommendation engine. There's also like one that is built in. So it's really about finding the solution that works best for your customers and your store and using that. But there are a lot of tools in the market that you just need to choose from to implement that. And you want to, on the one hand, be as granular as possible and get into the specific things that you know would work on your customers. But on the other hand, you don't want to, like, it doesn't have to be perfect from the beginning. Start with something general, and then like whenever you see a trend, you see, oh, I see everyone who buys this also tends to like this product. Create a specific trigger for that. Create a specific upsell for that. Whenever you find a trend, and slowly build it to something more robust.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. And we also got a question for Jameela here. So, what are the best timings and placements on the website to prompt customers for reviews without being intrusive? Jameela, oh, I think your mic is off. Let's unmute it.
I'm muted. Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Thank
I was
you.
like, I'm so sorry. On the website, on the product page, the leave a review. You see it on Amazon. You can do it in Farah too. There's like a little leave a review button, and you can make it so that only people who have purchased that product will see that button. So that's a place where you can put it. If you have customer pages and people can see their orders, that's another easy place to ask for reviews without being intrusive. And then, of course, we think that you should ask for a follow-up. So like if people want to hear from you, if they've opted in to hear from you, then asking for a review through email is another really great place. That's not particularly on the website, but another place on the website is if you are offering customer support and after you've resolved an issue and people are really happy with you, then you can say, oh, can you leave a review? And it feels a little bit less intrusive. But for like super passive, just on the product page, it's a good place to ask for a review on the site without being like, leave me a review. And they can do it on their own time.
Awesome. Thank you, Jameela. And as we're wrapping up, I have just one last question for Blair. So Blair, what is one piece of advice you would give to e-commerces just starting out in their D2C journey today?
Yeah, no, for sure. This is a fun one because I can take it wherever I want. I think like one of the big things here, and I think Jameela, you mentioned in sort of the intro segment, like sort of customer journey stuff, and I think like that's like really. I think that's like an area of focus, or should be, for a lot of small brands. I think like one of the interesting things is like there's a bunch of communities for like small brand operators. There's like Facebook groups, and there's like a subreddit where people post their stores for reviews and feedback. And I think like I like to browse through those, and I think some of the feedback that I see just like repeatedly are things that could be like easily avoided by just like watching somebody shop on your store for the first time, somebody unfamiliar, right? And I think there's this like assumption that most purchases happen by somebody lands on the homepage and then they click through to a product page and then they add it to their cart and then they check out and everybody's happy. And I think that is like a nice like idealized form of shopping, but it's not actually realistic. In most cases, people are taking a more convoluted journey through the site, and they want to see what you have to say about yourself and your products and your brand. And I think those additional steps reveal things like, okay, but now I want to get back to shopping, but there's no easy way because my menu is too small and there's no call to actions anywhere. And it's like, I think those are the type of things where like just watching somebody organically use your site for the first time can be just like very eye-opening and help you avoid a lot of the like really common pitfalls that I see around very small brands.
Awesome. So really paying attention to the experience you're providing and how you can actually enhance and optimize that experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. I think we actually have a little bit extra time, so I think I'm just going to jump into one question for all of you. I'd love for you to just jump in and answer as ideas come up. So what are the most unconventional ways that you have seen people use to boost conversion so far?
I'm
Any
thinking.
ideas? Ruth, do you have anything in mind?
I'm thinking too. I can tell you about one of our customers that I really like. They sell plants, and it's not exactly a conversion boosting activity. But what they did is they basically don't only sell plants. They're for people like me who kill their plants, and they teach you how to take care of the plant. So what they did is they created a funnel where, depending on the specific plant that you purchased, you see a different video on the thank you page telling you how to take care of it. And they're educating you about the product that you just purchased. I think it's creating more engagement with the brand. It's encouraging the confirmation bias of, yeah, I made a good decision. They're teaching me how to take care of my plant. And it's a really good way to not necessarily increase conversions in this case, but increase retention. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's so cool.
I hope you're keeping your plants alive.
Yeah.
One thing that I saw, okay, so I just bought these like reusable paper towel things, and it's not unconventional, but the way that they did their ad, I don't know if you guys have seen the rise in like street style TikTok interviews and that kind of thing. Like those are super popular. So they had this street style ad, and I was watching it because I was like, oh, maybe it's just like it felt very organic. And then they had a really, really good retargeting campaign. They would like follow up with why it's sustainable, and I would see it in my feed all the time, and I knew I needed it. I was just like too lazy, and I always got distracted. So like really getting on trends and capturing people's attention with ads is a really good way to boost conversion rates. And I didn't buy for like another 2 weeks, but I have like 3 sets that I put in here and like my Airbnb and stuff like that. So it's like you want to grab people's attention, and that will boost conversion rates over time. And if people aren't ready to buy right away, retargeting still is tried and true. Okay, I am living proof of that.
I always get caught in those videos too. They're so good. Oh my gosh. Cool. Blair, do you have anything to add to this?
I don't. I don't know how unconventional it is. So I'm gonna sort of steal this question, just talk about something that excites me, and it has nothing to do with what we do. But we're obviously thinking about AI a lot, and I think like when I say it's not necessarily unconventional, I think like it is actually pretty rare right now. I don't think it's like widely adopted, but I think it's going to be like even more so, is just like other uses of generative AI to boost conversions, right? Like one of the newer use cases that we've seen is like AI generated product photos. And this is like something that is like very doable now and very cheaply for like a fraction of the cost of what it used to cost to take like really beautiful product photos. Moving beyond just kind of like product on white background to like action shots that used to cost, you might spend thousands of dollars on a photo shoot. And now you like don't necessarily need to do that as a brand to have like really, really professional looking photos. And like I say, like it's not unconventional weird, it's just unconventional. Not enough people are doing it, but I think we're going to see that.
Yeah, I've even seen some videos that are AI created, and they look AI created, but they're not like so obvious. So they're like,
Yeah.
this is like, well, Pilates took me from this to this, but it's not a real model. It's just like an AI.
Yeah, well, and I think like I think you're definitely right that it's like right now, like sometimes you can pick out that it is like an AI generated thing, but then to like think back that this was like totally impossible like 1 or 2 years ago, and now you can sometimes tell that it's AI generated, I think is just like a good indication of like how good it's going to get over the next few years.
Right? It's kind of scary too, though. I don't
A
know.
little scary. It's a little scary. It's a brave new world out there.
It is, right?
No, not Brave New World.
What?
I actually think sometimes being able to tell that it's AI is not a bad thing. Like some customers would see a video of a product done with AI and be like, oh, cool, they're using AI to market their products. And it's not necessarily a bad thing right now until we get to the point where we can tell. Yeah.
until it's everywhere, right? Like I do think that it's like it's one of those things that is benefited by not everybody doing it right now. I think it's probably gonna get played out eventually once everybody catches on.
Yeah. And I feel like it depends on your customer as well, like your audience. Like some people will be more open to innovative ways of seeing the product or seeing, and other people will like tradition and feel like they can trust whatever the brand is advertising for. So yeah, cool. Okay, we still have like a minute and a half, so I'm just gonna jump in and ask one last question. So I just asked you about advices, Blair. I was wondering if anyone else has any other advice they would like to give to people just starting out the D2C commerces.
I did want to mention that since we've come through Black Friday, Cyber Monday, a lot of the people that you've already gotten are looking for Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals. So you should definitely segment them separately going forward, especially in email when you're following up with them, when you're offering certain types of deals, because like these people are most likely deal seekers. So if they've only purchased from you once and they purchased during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, probably segment those people out in your email or anywhere else. And you can I think you'll have a better time marketing to them going forward than if you just market to them as if they were like regular year-round customers. So I just wanted to bring that up.
That's great. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Jameela. Didn't add anything, Ruth, at all?
Yeah, I just want to say that the thing that I think you need to focus on when you're first starting out is the one next thing that's going to generate you more revenue, more traffic, and more sales. We talked about a lot of things here, and it can get a little overwhelming when you hear a lot of advice. And it's all good advice. So just choose one thing, do that imperfectly, and improve on that slowly. And like compete with yourself all the time for the results, not with anyone else.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I love that. Thank you so much, you guys. You were amazing today. And yeah, I hope everyone at home gets to use all of those tactics and ideas into improving their own conversions. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you all soon.
Thanks.
you so
Bye.
much.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Everybody.